I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now you have the roll call. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Superintendent Barnhart.
Yes, before our meeting gets underway with our typical agenda, I would like to ask for the board to get an update on something that we've been working on now for about a year and a half, and that is the evacuation plan for our preschool population in the district. And we've gotten it to the point where we believe that we're fairly well ready to roll with this thing if it ever should, circumstances should require it. And to just share with you a brief overview is Scott Castelline, who is our assistant supervisor, assistant police chief and supervisor of security. Scott.
Good evening. No, it's coming.
Yep. We've given everybody one of these things, and we'll probably just kind of dash through it quickly for...
Okay. Yeah, the project we're here to talk about tonight is going to be called Project Safe Move, and this is our way of providing temporary shelter to some of the child care centers located within the school district. We'll talk a little bit about what the project is and how it's going to be used. In the event a child care center needs to evacuate its facility, for example, a fire, maybe a local neighborhood emergency, natural emergency, or maybe even something going on inside their building, we want to be prepared to give them a hand with their evacuation and temporary shelter of students. So we're willing to provide them with transportation in a temporary facility to assist them until they can safely arrange reunification of the children with their parents or guardians. The process that we're looking to use to activate this system would be a phone call that would be placed to either John O'Malley or myself, and in our absence, they could contact the main number of the school district and notify us of the type of emergency that they're dealing with. What we're going to expect as far as a report from the child care center, the location of the child care center that needs the help, the type of emergency they have, the number of adults that need to be moved, the number of children that need to be moved, the number of infants that need to be moved, and even more important, the number of special needs individuals that need to be moved. That'll help us arrange the appropriate transportation and facilities that they need once we get them out of their building. Once they contact us, we'll do our best to provide them with the approximate time of arrival for us to transport them out of there, and we'll do our best at that point to give them the name and location of the school that we're going to use as the shelter. Obviously, the nearest school would be our first choice, but that may not always be feasible because the emergency affecting that child care center may also be affecting a neighborhood school in that area. So we're going to have to evaluate that on a case-by-case basis. Okay, as far as transportation goes, the school district transportation department will, upon notification of a request for assistance, contact their list of on-call bus drivers. The buses will be used will travel to the child care center, and they will do their best to give accommodations for child safety seats when possible. And once the driver arrives at the school, they'll meet with John or myself, and we'll provide them with further instruction at that time. Once everybody's on scene, we're going to rely on the child care center supervisor and John and I, and we'll begin to arrange the boarding of the buses. We'll expect the child care center to have prepared an active roster of all the people that are going to be transported, both adults and children. And we also would expect them to have what we're calling a go bag ready for their travel, preferably to accommodate up to us holding them for up to 8 hours. And in this go bag, we're talking about items such as diapers, formula, baby food, blankets, bedding, personal medication that the children may have at the child care center, as well as, again, the roster and parent contact information. Once they arrive at a school district facility, John or I will help coordinate with the building principal to determine the area that we're going to use to shelter those students. In most of our buildings, we would probably be looking at a library or a gymnasium. The child care personnel will then begin making contact with the parents and guardians to facilitate the reunification process as soon as possible. And we will provide security staff to assist them wherever that is needed. Some of the key things to this that we are stressing to the child care centers: Project Safe Move is temporary. Again, we're trying to keep it. We want them to plan for an 8-hour situation. We're hoping to keep it shorter than that. We have the ability to provide them with some snacks, some drinks, because we have those facilities in our schools. However, they need to consider the special needs of their children when we assist them. Again, the go bag is essential, and the schools that we use, the type of school it is may vary, but we can assure them that the children will be safe wherever we have them. And one of the other, and actually very important thing to remember, is that schools must have a plan B, or these child care centers must have a plan B in place. If we're looking at a natural disaster or a large-scale emergency that would affect our schools, our entire school district, obviously our first responsibility is to take care of our own children first, and then provide them with whatever assistance. So they need to be prepared, in addition to those services we're willing to provide, to have an alternate plan in place.
Thanks, Scott. If you may recall, the initial conversation that we had about 18 months ago or so was the observation that a local child care group was relocated to a firehouse in an emergency, and conversation started, and we thought that given the situation, the district might be able to provide temporary housing for a very vulnerable part of our population, children here in the school district. And so we've been working on this now since that time to try to put this together, and I think that this forms the as much of an outline as there can be, because so much of what we're doing is based on the situation and the nature of the emergency. Because again, our first responsibility is to our own children, but God forbid if there's an emergency in a certain area of the school district that affects young children, where best could they be housed than in a public school where there are facilities and personnel and multiple means of communicating with parents and so forth. So we do believe that there are lots of good reasons why we should establish this opportunity and this relationship. We also believe we're not sure that such a relationship exists anywhere else in the Commonwealth. So this might be the first and only attempt at trying to provide services for that preschool population like this. So we'll see what happens. But the child care centers and the parents who have been informed about this seem to be very positive and very appreciative of the opportunity to know that if they're in northern New Jersey at work and there should be an emergency, that their children might be in a safe haven of a school, library, for example, until they can get to them.
John, have we identified how many child cares there are?
Oh, yeah.
Approximately 40.
Yeah.
Varying in size from as little as maybe a dozen to the largest being about 180.
Yeah.
But some of those with the higher numbers are some of the after-school programs. Some of those daycares or child care centers are actually already housed in our buildings. So that includes pretty much everything that's in the school district.
Thank you.
I mean, John, are you looking at doing this during just a day? I mean, something happens at 5 o'clock at night. Are we looking to cover that?
Well, I personally think that, if there's any possible way that we can activate a fast and After 5 o'clock, most of those centers are going to be fairly reduced in numbers to begin with. So during the day is when we would be especially able to help people. I'm not saying at night we wouldn't, if there was a need for transportation, a mass exit quickly, I would say we'd be there if we can, so.
I mean, I look at that, and also when you think about transportation, we talked about getting in the substitutes. We have a lot of buses that are on the road during the day. Let's say even just during like a CIP one, right?
Yes.
So if they're on the road, even though maybe they should be taking CIP students, maybe they have to be diverted.
Yeah.
Or maybe, I know we have various people in maintenance and everything that can also
They
take
can
a bus.
run, yes.
So, I mean, because minutes can seem like hours depending on what the situation is to keep things calm. So would we not consider using them?
I think we would, absolutely.
So we should update that.
Could we assume that whatever municipality they're located in,
Yeah.
that law enforcement agency would be the lead one, and we would be working in conjunction with them?
My concern with that would be, I don't want to rely on that agency because depending on the type of emergency, their resources may be dedicated to the emergency. So, I mean, I can speak for John and I know the dedication of our staff that we have, that I can feel very confident telling you that we'll be more than willing to step up and work beyond those hours to help out.
Thank you.
But so you're stepping up if they're not there.
Correct. And if they're in our buildings, I mean, I think we should still have a security or police presence there from the school district. So that's not a problem.
Right. Now, I mean, if you go to the scene, there's a problem in child care, right? If the police are already on the scene, they have the ownership until.
Oh, yes, that's correct, yeah.
So I wanted to bring you up to speed with this, and because I do believe it's before the end of the month, there's going to be a meeting with the child care professionals in our school district that was being held as part of our transition program, and we're going to be distributing this information, and again with the understanding that where allegiance, if you will, is to take care of our children first, but chances are there could be many circumstances where our buses could be made available quickly for an evacuation of an area, and perhaps much faster than a Lanta bus, for example, or another means of public transportation. We've also put out an announcement asking for infant carriers, so that as a district, it's interesting to note that some of these agencies can have up to 20 infants, and some of them have as many as 15 infants in their care. So, if we're going to try to commit our resources to helping out, then one of the things we need to do is be prepared to move infants quickly. And we're hoping that the carriers are at the agency, but if not, if anybody has any that they can, willing to share with us, the infant carriers would be willing to hang on to them for a while.
If you're having meetings, you're also meeting with the emergency personnel in the various communities?
That's been done, I believe, through John.
And so as we formalize it more and more, and a final plan is put in place, it'll definitely be communicated to them, provided to them.
But they at least have a clue what's going on.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
Okay, then we're going to move on to academics. Bryce is not here, so do we do the K through 12?
Sure. I'm going to start with one thing that was not in part of the report that I shared with you last time. I think it was Mr. Reinhardt, one of you asked me for some numbers of students who participated in summer programming. These are rough numbers, but I do want to share. I reached out to Jim Kripczak. It said probably 300 of his varsity high school students were on site throughout the summer, practicing, working out, being engaged. And about 450 of our students were participating in their athletic camps. So that's, I believe, middle school, upper elementary through middle school age participating in camps. So a good number of kids out of the high school. High school also had, about 35 students who participated in their summer school and 49 who participated in their Keystone Prep.
course. The middle school had approximately 40 students participate in the Picasso summer program. And then at our elementaries, the thing that we offer at the elementary is our 3 title schools. We offer summer pre-K summer school program. At Cheston, they had 40, and they invite them all. Cheston had 40, Paxenosa had 30, and March had 14 who participated in the pre-K program. And then we also offer, the Easton Public Library offers a reading program, if you will. It's at their leisure to go and read so many books and earn points. And they probably had about 100 to 150 plus, depending on the school, who participated in that first school. And then, in particular, Cheston had another good handful of kids, I don't have an exact number, who participated in Boys and Girls Club activities. And then we had about 75 students, which is a K-5 program, participate in Summer Sizzle. And that's the summer literacy program that we partner with Project of Easton with. So we did have a pretty good number of kids participate in some type of school-sponsored summer programming. Any questions on that? Sure. As for the academics and ed, again, I'm just going to kind of briefly highlight what's typed here, and then feel free to ask for our information. But all of our schools are currently working on finishing up their school improvement plans. We review that as a team to give some feedback and know where we need to help support individual schools attain their goals. The Easton Read the Lead initiative is our partnership with Step by Step Learning. That's our elementary partnership on reading best practices. This is our 3rd year, 2.5 year with that partnership. This year that entails having our kindergarten and first grade teachers work along with their interventionists, principals, and their consultants on best practices. I will tell you that is going well, but it is also, I'm not going to sugarcoat it, it's stressful. It's a lot of work. It's a mental shift. Thinking about your practices a little bit differently, and we chose to engage with this because of wanting to improve our reading scores. So I will say we have certainly many willing partners in our teachers, and all doing a very dynamic job, but it's stressful. I'm not going to pretend that it's not, because it is. It's a lot of work. Data-informed dialogues are happening at all levels, K-12 through a combination of data team meetings, and then those happen at as grade levels, as departments, as schools, and then also all principals K-12 are also doing learning walks where they're just able to give some teachers some positive feedback and some constructive feedback as well as they watch their teaching practices and try to hone some of those skills. Mike's reporting here on the STAR assessment, and that's, again, we mentioned a little bit earlier on, but it's our new universal screener. Most of you know the name DIBELS, and we still use that at K-1, and that gives us just a universal screener on basic reading skills. STAR is a basic universal screener for literacy and mathematics, K-8. Personalized learning. Again, I'm going to defer to my colleagues who submitted this one. And double math block are 2 things that Mike's working on at the high school and middle school. Again, trying to pay attention to the data and provide some resources for teachers and students as they need support academically. This Trinkle has a number of pages here. I'm just going to leave it at that. She has a number of pages here on best practices within the pupil services, community service realm, immunization update, which I know you've been talking about, things happening within our school guidance, nurse, and such departments. So please feel free to ask questions of her. I know she also has a report here on trauma informed, which is something that we're very proud to be able to support some of our schools and students with those resources and coping mechanisms. And then also we have submitted here from our tech department from Anne, just an update on the projector that you saw a demonstration last time we were here. Just the installation and use of those at Paxenosa, as well as a quicker, kid-friendly mechanism for getting into all these resources that we have kids log into, like Fast Math and so on and so forth. Clever is a quick, easy login mechanism. A very quick overview, but if you would like more information on any of these topics, my colleagues and I are more than happy to.
I would just offer up that that's an impressive list of initiatives here as we start off the school year. A couple of those are extremely important to our students. The trauma-informed initiatives, the Chapter 339 mandate ties in with the comment and the conversation we had last week or the week before about career education in the school district. This is going to lead it right into a review and has really led into a review of career education and what we're doing and what we need to do better with that. The fact that we've got a new STAR assessment system, which I think at some point, maybe in the months ahead, you can maybe give a show as to how that informs parents of and teachers what's going on with kids. That would be good. Data team meetings and data informed dialogues. I mean, all of that is extremely important in this day and age. So I congratulate everybody for being a part of that. Karen, can you give us an update on the immunizations?
Yes.
I know you have one here, but
We-
briefly in a sentence or two.
We are by school at like single digit
Okay.
student numbers
Good.
For exclusions, and most of them are not actually exclusions. They're both
Yeah.
based on medical certificates or medical plans that
Right.
the nurses have received. So that being the one of the larger changes, in addition to the reduction in days that we had to kind of get this done from 8 months to 5 days, we acted last March to get this process started.
Right.
Dee Dara and our nurses really kind of formulated a plan and are doing that now. And I think the efforts are dedicated are clear here that we have single, small numbers in each building as far as immunization exclusions. And those are exclusions because, for real good reason.
Yeah.
Not because we couldn't get them an appointment or we don't have
Yes.
a medical certificate. The hard part is running a report in our system, because when we created a medical certificate checkbox, we can't pull from that. So we're doing bi-weekly audits to make sure that we're not missing any, and we're actually tracking those plans that we've received. So if we have a plan that I have an immunization appointment next week, my nurses are making sure that they're looking every 2 weeks to make sure that families are actually following up with that. Because some of the appointments are pretty far out, because
Sure.
there's sometimes the immunizations weren't available. It's difficult to get an appointment. Some healthcare issues with when they have their last appointment. So we took all of those things into consideration, but we reduced a very, very large number very quickly.
Do you, as the person who's ultimately accountable for seeing that this process play out, do you see any areas of concern, not so much with the district, but with access to immunizations and doctors and the medical system?
We do not have a health department locally, which is a huge hamstring for us. And if you look around our surrounding communities with Beckham and Allentown, having health departments right at their doorsteps. We've looked into immunization clinics and things like that, and try to figure out how to do that so we can provide access. We've been able to fortunately get some help from Bethlehem and allowing them to utilize some of their clinics on a case-by-case basis in hardships without insurance and things like that. We were able to send families there if they were able to get there. But some doctors' offices were not willing to comply with the expectation of the district. So that was a huge issue, and just educating our community physicians about those types of things. And so that's why we started as quickly as we did.
Is there a health department at the county level?
Yes.
No.
Well, we can. Sometimes getting the information and getting the resources isn't quite as expeditious as we would like. But yeah, we do reach out to our county Department of Health, but that our office is, I don't believe, any longer downtown.
That is where the rub is, because quite frankly, for an area as large as Lehigh Valley with as many people and as diverse as it is, you would think that there would be a stronger desire on the part of officials and residents to have a board of health that everyone can seek help from, and that's not the case in Lehigh Valley. There was an effort a number of years ago to do that, and I was a part of that effort. I was asked to be a representative of a portion of the county to see if we could get something going with the Lehigh Valley Board of Health, but it was eventually squashed at the county level. The individuals who were in charge of the county budgets really didn't see this as important. When it comes to this kind of thing, immunizations and other concerns, safety and other things, there's really an emptiness there for communities like Easton. We have a city board of health, but that really doesn't have jurisdiction into the townships. It's a very awkward and confusing arena, so as a school district you have to sort of work in and around some of that. But I'm glad to hear we're down single.
Yeah, I mean, the credit goes to the nurses, the principals who all worked, very quickly to make sure that families had the information. Athletics was on board to help us kind of reach out to those students and families, and we made do without some of the things that other districts have. So we did, the credit goes to those staff.
Yes,
really
right. We worked around
Yep.
the resources that you say other districts in the Commonwealth have. We just don't have those resources here in the Valley. So, and we appreciate the assistance from the Bethlehem City Board of Health and others. It's just not very organized, if you will. That's the right word. Without a Lehigh Valley Board of Health or without an agency like that, it makes these jobs a lot more difficult.
And the only other two things that I have that are probably noteworthy is to just let you know that we're continuing with our leadership team meetings here, where all of our administrative staff come, in the evening a couple of times a year, so that we can collaborate and kind of put out anything that we need to continue our professional development as well. And then we are in the planning stages only, so I don't want this published, not for, in stone, but we are working on our first parent education series right now, tentatively for November 16th, which, if you recall, last year we did two, where we had a variety of topics that parents can come out and share some learning with us as well. So we're starting with planning the question.
Great. Thank you.
Sorry, two questions. First one is the step-by-step. When I had asked before, do we have any data analysis yet of how the program is?
So far, just what I gave you, whether that was the fall or spring. We are in our first round now with kindergarten teachers. So they are, so the short answer is not yet, because we did our first round of Dibbles in August. The next one is coming up in November, Dibbles and Star. What we probably can take a look at is last year how many students, what types of intervening needed to happen versus this year. Again, it's still a little bit early because we had our interventionists intervene, but now we actually have our teachers intervening as well. So I don't know that there's a fair set of data that can show that yet. A little bit more time is needed to be able to show or
Okay. And then the other part is, because career development is a big thing of mine. Can I get a copy of the presentation that you guys did?
Yeah.
Because I'd love to see that and see what we're planning on doing.
It was more of a showcase of what we have been doing in improvements in this curriculum revision. But yes, I can absolutely send that to you.
Okay. Because I'd like to see where we're
moving it along and what we're going to do with it.
Absolutely.
Any other questions?
I would say, step by step, have been very transparent. It's a huge investment. And so you're not wrong in asking for that. That's something that we continually have to monitor to see whether it's, the right fit for us. We do know that prior to engaging, our results were not what we wanted to be, and so we really felt like we needed to think out of the box and think a little bit differently. Change takes 3 to 5 years. I don't expect us to sit for 3 to 5 years and sit on our laurels and not make decisions, so we are constantly looking at that data. So as soon as I have that we can show you. I just don't think we have enough data points to really have a good dialogue about that yet.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we have a presentation, correct?
I'm really excited to have Jen Goodyear here tonight.
Oh, there she is. I just said I don't see Jen.
Jen is one of the 6th grade teachers who's doing the double block of math. And towards the middle of last year, I recommended her for the Keystone Technology Innovators Award. And she was selected out of 600 teachers across the state of Pennsylvania. And she had that experience this summer. It was a week away, right, at Shippensburg. And while she was away and when she got back, I got flooded with emails of excitement from Jen. She had an amazing time. She said it wasn't just changing the way she thinks about school, it was like life-altering, her experience. So her excitement is really contagious, and I wanted her to share a little bit about it with you.
Well, I think we should start off by first acknowledging that with a round of applause. We selected from 600 applicants across the state in technology. It's a terrific honor, and we're thrilled that you're with us and you're doing these great things here.
Thank you. And it was really a thrilling thing, and I'm humbled and I'm honored by you, first of all, asking me to do this, but I was also in a group of 100, 120 people who were like-minded like me, and it was just inspiring. And every time I emailed her from there, and I'm like, this is so great, I can't wait to come back. And I'm like, when can we meet? So it was really worth it, and it was a week away, and it was a lot of fun. I connected with a lot of people from different school districts across the county, across the state, and I still keep in contact with a lot of them. So we share a lot of ideas. They do a lot of stuff that we just started and implemented in our classrooms, which are the double block and station rotations. So I kind of just made a short little presentation about Keystone Technology Innovators, and I also what I'm doing right now in my classrooms. So I just can start that. That's the group of people that I worked with. This was the very end. We came together and we shared a whole week together, and it was from the time we woke up till 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night. And we just went through class after class of different types of technologies that we could put into our classrooms and we could share with other people in our building. We went somewhere we did robotics, we did things on Makerspace, we did all kinds of applications, we did iPad stuff, we did so much technology. It was mind-boggling. I even had to jot stuff down because I knew I was going to forget it. But I was allowed to choose each day 3 different topics, and they had a huge selection. And those topics are what interested me. So I did at least 9 classes, 10, 12 classes. We had keynote speakers from all over PA. They were awesome. We had the Teacher of the Year come in, and he spoke. It was really good. We had also speakers that were our leaders who were past KTI, people that have gone through this whole process, and they were the ones who gave us the classes.
It's amazing that you all wore the same shirt.
Oh yeah, it was great. This right here is a day. This is just one of the days that we did. You can just go on there. It's like a little clip that we have, and it's through a Twitter account because we did a lot of stuff through Twitter out there, which is something that I kind of look at. So this is just one day. We're all welcomed every day in, and we just sat down with a group of people that we didn't even know because nobody knew anybody. We went to our classes, and we did a lot of STEM projects, which I've incorporated in my classes. We worked through this was App Day, so we got to share special apps. We had an overarching type of thing that we had to work on for our colleagues, more STEM things that we participated in different classes that we were involved in. It was something. This was Makerspace, where we had people come in from different places. They showed us their wares. We had 3D vision. We had the tabletop computers. We had all kinds of robotics, everything to look at. And every day there was a winner or 3 or 4, and I won a robot, so I was like all excited. I did that in my classroom. It was awesome. And it was just a bunch of networking and sharing ideas. That was our makerspace, and then we did some other things. So that was something that I used to bring back into my classroom. So what I did is we started this year with a double block of math. These are the lowest 120 kids in our district, in our school. And I have in one class about 20 to 21 students. And what I do is we're doing rotations, and you'll see in a minute. I kind of wanted to show you what we have in our room. We have a teacher center, we have our individual or self-center, and we have a group center. And these students have to rotate through each center between 22 and 25 minutes depending on the time. And they have to do it independently. They have to learn how to rotate through. So the first video that I have is showing you, it could have been the day 1, it could have been day 3, it could have been day 5, but it was really last week because they need to practice this all the time. So they're just practicing going from station to station to station so that they know how to
Ready? Come on,
get ready,
go.
get prepared for
Go.
each station. And they're really pretty good about it, actually. Every now and then I have to practice it. Every now and then I got to practice it just so that they're
Ready?
aware of what they're
Go.
doing and they're used to it. So I get really good reviews from them. They like this because they're up and they're moving. It's an 84-minute block, so they're always moving around and they're always doing something at those stations. And the other one is we always go over the rules. And
Self-center, Nevaeh. What is the rules for the self-center? Okay, can you be a little bit louder?
They have to be absolutely
Okay, up here, Logan.
Now,
What are the
our
rules for the
classroom is
teacher-directed
completely
center?
different than a regular classroom. And right there, I only have 9 students.
And what do we do here?
Sometimes less.
Okay, Nevaeh, I'm going to come back to you. What's the one rule back there? Be quiet, okay? Over here, Aubrey.
That's my
What is the rule back here?
We have to work together on a STEM project with papers.
She said they
And
have
with
to work
Love Voice.
together and they have to do the work together in a respectful manner. So it's a continual shift. So they're also learning on their own. They're learning group work. They're learning how to interact with each other, and they're learning to be self-directed. So double block of math is teaching math in a different way. So these kids I have are for 22, 25 minutes with me, and it is ultimate, like, this is what you're doing wrong, this is what you're doing right. I can adjust to their needs. I can adjust their homework. I can adjust the classwork that I'm doing. It is point on with these kids individually learning. And it is an awesome, awesome experience. I can't say enough about it. The people at the KTI were like, you're never going to want to go back to regular teaching. And I'm like, I don't know about that, but I'm going to tell you what, I'll never go back. I really won't. I absolutely, and the kids love it. I mean, they love it. The next thing that I have is some of the things that we do in the group center. Next one there. Yeah, we do a lot of STEM projects. I try to embed one STEM project a year. Like it started really simple, build a tower out of newspaper and tape. And then it went build a tower out of spaghetti and marshmallows. So I give them the supplies. I don't tell them how to do it. I just tell them an end project and they got to work through it. It's teaching them group, interactions. It teaches them how to build. Now this, what they were doing was one of the harder things. They were trying to build a bridge out of straws and tape. And it didn't work. The first time they did it, it didn't work. So I went back, I made a little PowerPoint. I showed them the PowerPoint on bridges, showed them a couple bridges, and they had to go back to the drawing board and do it again. So it teaches them you can't get it all the time the first time. So you got to be pretty patient about it. You got to practice. And then the next thing that I had them do was I showed them how to do Google Slides. First of all, they didn't even know what a PowerPoint was, none of them. So that was my first thing. So we went through it. I explained to them very shortly, briefly, how to name it. I showed them how to embed a picture into it, and they had to explain how to multiply decimals because that's what we were doing. I didn't show them anything about colors. I didn't show them anything about fonts. I just said there's something in there and look for it. And this is where they're at. Now we're on day 4. They still want to keep doing it. They're all excited. I'm like, this is it. And they're like, no, this isn't it. We're not done. So they're still working on it, and we're still adjusting to some things. Some of the things that they didn't understand. So they're so engaged, and they are so liking this class. I mean, I can't even say enough about this double block. I really can't. I wish I could do it for my honors. I tried doing it a regular 42-minute, and it doesn't work. It's just not enough time. So I kind of split the time up, and I kind of shift things around so that I can at least get some stuff in with my honors classes. But this is just so inspiring for these kids. I mean, I'm reaching them. I get time with them. I get to talk to them one-on-one. How's your day? Why aren't you doing good? I can do all that with them in a small type of setting, and that goes so far in a classroom. I think the last thing. There's one last thing I think. Oh, I do MobyMax in the self-center, and MobyMax is a nice data. Gives me a lot of good data on their skills as far as math, but also fact fluency. It drills down. It teaches them lessons that they didn't get maybe in second grade or first grade, and they can do that on their own. And then the last one is My Center, which I think is the best center. They can be with me, and I can give them individual instruction and adapt homework or anything that they need at that time. They're on task, and learning is occurring. So I think there's one more, and I think that's it. Yeah, and those are the other technologies those are the technologies that I've already used, and those are the ones I want to use. So I embedded a lot of stuff that I learned from KTI into this classroom. So the KTI was an awesome experience. I suggest that all principals nominate somebody from their building, because I cannot tell you how it was wonderful. And to go forward and to do stuff like this in my classroom, I would never have been able to do this without the backing of these people. So that's my presentation. I'm excited. Thank you for having me.
Thank
you, Jen.
Yeah, you had a chance to interact with others and try, and just by your own experience, you're really on top of the technology in the classroom. What has that done to what you believe the classroom's going to look like in 10
they need
10 years?
From now, everything that we're doing now is going to be, they're already going to know how to do it. They're going to know how to get into Google Classroom and platforms like that. And I think that as a district, we really need to hone in on those 21st century skills for those kids, because I'm seeing a lot of lapses in there, a lot of holes that are in there. They know how to get on cell phones, they know how to do games, but to go into a Google Classroom platform or into Word docs and make things, maneuver things, they don't know how to do that yet. So I think our district needs to move forward to make sure that these kids have those skills, because we don't even know where they're going to go even when they get into high school. We have no idea what technology is going to bring us. And I think those kids need to be aware of it at this age and even younger. That's one thing that I did come away with from the technology standpoint. So we just need to keep bringing that technology in.
And how difficult was it to get those two, the double math period? Was it difficult to manipulate the schedule to get the double math?
Honestly, we had training at the end of last year, so we had like an idea of what was going on. But when I went to KTI, I actually met people who've done it, and they said, okay, here's what you need to do, A, B, C. Do this, because this is, and that kind of wrapped my brain around it. And when we met at the beginning of the school year, I got to meet with the colleagues who were doing the double block of math, and they were like, how do you do this? I go, here's what you do, A, B, C, D, here we go. And they're like, oh, that's it, Leah, that's it. That's all you got to do. Just keep going, So I could share like that information that I brought. Otherwise, I would have been like, it's just so hard to understand. But if you break it down, it's kind of simple. You just got to keep doing it. But yeah, it's definitely worth it.
I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you.
She's really done a great job. And I think that last piece about sharing is the most important. And she's so excited and wants to share with anyone who will listen, including the newspaper. So the more people in our district who learn from Jen.
Great article.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great article. Thank you, Ann and Jen. Thank you.
Their mom said.
I get after my seminar, my little workshops.
I got one.
Okay, is there anyone from the public to be heard on academic agenda items?
Do we have this stand? Do we have anything with building and grounds?
Yeah, that's coming.
All right.
Right?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
so do you want to add that, Mike, or you want to, he's not here?
Sure. We ready for that?
Yeah, we're ready.
We're going to have an update from Josh Grice with Engineering, talk about summer projects coming up, part of our capital improvement plan, 5-year plan, a little update on where we're at with some of the current projects, specifically with respect to Tracy and change order numbers for casework and cabinetry.
Okay. Thanks, Mike. Can everybody hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks. Okay, so I just wanted to briefly, in the PowerPoint, talk about the proposed upcoming summer of 2018 capital projects. For the most part, they are included on that list that we've been reviewing over the past couple of committee meetings and public meetings as far as what the 5-year capital plan within the district is. So tonight, and what I wanted to touch on, it's really important at this point, even though it's October, it's early into the school year. For the summer projects, we really like to have these things kind of locked in from a scope and budget and bidding standpoint by the early winter, January, February timeframe, so that we can have them out to bid and have bids back early spring. That allows us to get really good competition with the bidders before people really start getting busy in the summer timeframe. That gives us really good bid numbers back. And also if there are any lead time issues with equipment that might need to be ordered, we can make sure that we have those contracts in place well ahead of time so that we can get those types of things ordered and ready to hit the summer timeframe. So tonight I just wanted to recap what's on the plan and that we can sort of get consensus to move forward with the design phase of each project. At this point, the district is not committed to accepting bids. It simply allows us as the engineer and design professional to get started with the design documents for each project. So at the high school, on the capital plan for this summer, we had the replacement of the synthetic turf playing surface and also the resurfacing of the track. With the field itself, we would be reusing the stormwater piping that's located beneath the track. This would be a replacement only of the surface. Also at the high school, with the HVAC plant, we're looking at a replacement of some of the central plant components, meaning the chillers, the pumps, refurbishing or replacement of the cooling tower. If we can refurbish it, we'll do that. And also a replacement of the temperature control system, which is sort of the brains of what pushes information out to the HVAC devices that are located throughout the building. Right now, that system is a pneumatic system. Replacement would be a completely automated electric system. Also, we were going to see if we could kind of tie into the HVAC project, since we're going to be branching out throughout the building, would be a network infrastructure improvement. Right now, it's older technology fiber. It's infrastructure that's supporting devices that were okay at the time of install, which is going on 20 years. But at this point, when we're looking at IP-based phone systems, at wireless access points throughout the entire building, including just about every classroom, that infrastructure is really being stressed at this point and is in need of upgrade. So that is on the plan as well. Along with that, we have been looking at renovations in part at Paxinosa, currently at Tracy, and later in the spring at Forks. Along with those improvements are going to be classroom technology improvements, mostly multimedia instructional technology improvements. So one of the other things that the board or the administration had asked us to look into is what do we need to do at Shawnee in March since we're not necessarily improving anything in those buildings in the near future, how can we bring those classrooms up to the standards of what's being renovated throughout the district? So we're going to be looking at making similar instructional technology improvements for Shawnee and March Elementary. Okay. So for the high school turf, that system was installed in 2007. So this fall athletic season would be the 11th season in use on that field. It's used year-round, not just for sports, but for PE activities. Sometimes the band practices there, so it really does get used heavily and would support a synthetic replacement. Just with the number of activities per year, it really sort of demands a synthetic surface. And if you want to go to the next one. Typically, synthetic turf fields, 10 years on average is the life expectancy of that surface. Again, the stormwater collection system that's below it will remain, so it's just the surface to be replaced. Over time, ultraviolet degradation happens with the fibers. They become sort of brittle. They lose a lot of their shape, their sort of resiliency, and that really affects the playability of the surface, and it also affects how hard that surface is, and that's called a GMAX test result. I'll show you a slide next. You can go back one, Ann, sorry. So that's for the turf. Also with the track, similar issues happen, especially with UV degradation. A couple different ways that a track can be resurfaced. The photo that you see on the right is essentially an overpour. It's a squeegee applied sort of liquid system with the rubber granules that are broadcast in that system. That's sort of a more robust option. There's also an option to spray, just provide a spray applied layer. So we're really going to take a look at the thickness of the existing system and come up with the most cost effective and best solution longer term for the district. Maybe we can get away with the spray option over the other one, but we're going to provide you with some options and costs associated with each one.
Josh, you in your conversations, did you get an estimate on approximately how many activities on that artificial turf in a year?
I didn't. I did reach out to the admin and to Mr. Prokrivsak. They couldn't nail down an exact number, but they did say we can tell you that it's in use every day for, if it's nice outside, PE classes out there, and pretty much every day for sports at some capacity. So it is getting heavily used every day.
Yeah. Well, that's fine, but we should attempt to quantify that, Kyle, and see. It's just a rounded off number, but it's something that I think would be helpful, because the key to replacing or considering replacing that field is the fact that it's used so frequently by a lot of students. So, I think we should try to quantify that. Give me a number if you can.
Josh, sorry. I also want to look at getting seating there. I mean, I know it's hard because of the hill, but I think the other fields, don't they all have seating? So, that I'm thinking about I'm not thinking about, obviously the cement ones that we have, but the metal ones that we have. Maybe a place where we can, level something off to put that in there. I just think it's smart. If we're going to go through and put the money into the field, and we have that much participation and that many sports there, we should have a place for people to sit.
Okay. The other thought is, do you look at, instead of doing that field, do you take one of the other fields that are further down, in that development there, and since they're level to begin with, do turf on them, and because they're your level already, you can do something with seating.
What's down there? How many fields are down there? 2? Soccer and
soccer.
You have practice. You have a freshman practice field. You have a baseball field. 2 softball fields. But,
you can take one of those and use it for board and use one sport.
So the only thing I'll caution with that is the way that the Conservation District treats synthetic turf. It's an impervious surface, similar to a parking lot. So since we're replacing it in kind at the current location, we don't have to go through that process because it's already been done. If we convert a natural grass surface to a synthetic turf surface, we would have to go through the Conservation District, and that approval timeframe can be anywhere between 4 to 6 months. So if that were to be entertained, we would need to know that quickly, if it were to be a 2018
Well, and I think
project,
that all
just to keep in
turf.
mind.
I mean, don't we always like one field to be grass? I mean,
Well, yeah, but I mean, if we have that much activity, then eventually, you do one new one, you have one of the old ones, you keep going back and forth, and especially you want to have your PE classes, one of the ones that you're using always for, the actual events and everything.
So just going back again, from a safety perspective, that GMAX value is important. There are a couple recommendations as far as if it exceeds 200, it can be deemed unsafe by certain standards. The Synthetic Turf Council recommends a maximum of 165. So as a field is new, it's in the lower 100 range, and as it gets older, it starts creeping up to the higher numbers. And there's another couple Xboxes, I think. There we go. So Mr. Case has had GMAX testing done yearly. In 2016, those results on average were 167. So not to the point where it's deemed unsafe by any means, but certainly indicative of a field that's aging and should be considered for replacement.
Tim, I'm sorry.
No, I know at our last capital project meeting, the field, I guess it was groomed last spring, and then there was going to be a GMAX test on it then. So I don't know if we've gotten those results yet after the grooming and everything, or if it's still falling
Yeah,
in.
Tim, I think this number was still from last year.
That number, that GMAX figure was from last year. So he just emailed us the numbers, but we don't have the final report like we had, what Josh had for 16. Obviously, the numbers have gone a little higher. So that average might go up some.
And I think along with
That's
that,
not good.
right.
The higher the number,
Right.
okay.
Right.
Yeah, we want to make sure everybody knows.
200 or above is unsafe.
Yeah.
I asked him the same question because
Yeah.
it is somewhat confusing.
Yeah.
But just so you know, most of those areas where that number is higher are usually in gold mouse areas where there's more activity. So lacrosse, soccer, field hockey.
Right.
okay, thanks, Ann.
Josh, before we go over there, and I don't want to belabor this, but to answer, just so we're not doing things that can or cannot be done, or that we don't come away with any kind of direction, I'm looking at an aerial view of the high school, and I'm looking at those other fields that you're suggesting we do, and just looking at the footprint of the current turf field and the track, I don't see any other field that can fit both in here, as far as the size. So if we were to look at something, you're talking about site work and without taking two fields. You're talking about a lot of site work and we're really talking about increased field costs.
Just
replacing this.
just up the hill from that, I think where the band typically practices.
But I'm not even sure there in that footprint that's going to fit the room needed for a track.
Yeah, I don't know that you necessarily need a track. Maybe it would just be another practice field.
Practice field, okay.
Sort of practice field.
So is that what you're looking at, like just doing another,
Yeah.
in addition to that? Is that?
Yeah. So you have another field, so, your PE classes and everything can use one field, they may use it for other miscellaneous practices and everything. And, the new one we would put in right now would be like your soccer, your field hockey and everything that they could play.
So I don't know, I mean, is that the direction to place out another one?
It's a
We
good
have a budget.
discussion for Wednesday mornings.
Okay. But in the meantime, we're looking tonight to move forward with the design for at least just that.
Yeah, well, if we can discuss it maybe and have some direction soon.
That's what I'm saying, I want to.
Like 7:30 tomorrow morning, we're going to be stuck.
Well, we don't meet tomorrow morning,
No,
right?
no.
So not till
Yeah.
next week. Yeah.
I just want to make sure.
Just
I don't come back-
You don't want it in
I don't
January.
want to come back next
Yeah,
month
they'll
and
tell me in
say.
January that we're going to
Right.
build it, and I tell you
Just
what, we
wanna
won't
make
get
it-
approval until August. So.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
That's what I thought.
Put it on the agenda.
Okay, so again, at the high school, I know everybody loves looking at HVAC equipment, so I'll kind of go through this quickly. But again, it's more of the central plant kind of equipment that we're looking at and the control system. It's not every individual classroom unit ventilator. It will be select units if needed, and the control system that goes along.
Can we talk about the impact that this has on the life of a student at Easton Area High School? I mean, we're looking at, you're right, these are not pictures that are exciting by any means. But what we need to know is how does this improve the environment in that high school for kids and teachers?
Especially with the control system, I think the indoor environment will have a definite improvement from the standpoint of more consistency. One room might be much hotter than the one next to it based on the age of some of the components that need to be replaced. If it's an actuator, a damper, a valve, those types of things. I think you're going to see much more consistent conditions. Mike will see lower operating costs for utilities. So there's definitely improvements, both environmental and financial, to be had with these.
Throughout the building, or are we just looking at certain sections?
Throughout the building. Yeah, throughout the building.
Just so you understand, a number
When Tim stands, I'm nervous.
we have 2 chillers in that building. A number of years ago, we did an R renewal on one of the existing chillers. When we did that, we knew that the second chiller was sort of ready for an R renewal the following year, which we didn't do.
Now you need to explain.
This is a chiller that you're looking at that picture.
An overhaul.
An overhaul.
Overhaul's an
No,
R
we
renewal.
have, we have,
Like a-
two, we have
like an
2
R
of
title.
those.
Is that short for renewal?
No,
What is
yeah,
R
yeah,
renewal?
R
Construct,
renewal, whatever, it was rebuilt.
Okay.
So, a number of years ago, we had one of those rebuilt, okay? We were going to rebuild the second one that following year, but we didn't. And since then, a number of years have gone by. So when we reach temperatures where it's in the 90s, it is very difficult for that one unit to run at 100% and cool the building without having a second unit helping it do that. So when the temperatures reach, like they're going to later on this week, surprisingly in October, that one unit will run at almost 100%, struggling to keep that building cool. As far as controls, those Johnson controls were put in 18 or more years ago. We are basically unable to get repair parts for that system. So when that system crashes, there is a mad rush to try to bypass and somehow rig it so that we can continue to run. So if we don't do the controls, we are certainly, at some point in time, we're going to have a catastrophic failure where we're not going to have air conditioning there one day, pretty much. It's inevitably going to happen.
So everybody will feel like the B-Wing.
Everybody will feel like the B-Wing. Well, the B-Wing is the last wing that gets it, so with just running one, and we do struggle to keep the B-Wing. I'm sorry if I
No, that's
interrupt. Just so you have a better idea of why we're talking about the chiller.
Okay, thanks, Ann. As I mentioned before, the data network upgrades is something that we are discussing with Sue in the IT department now. And really the intent, again, of that is to provide more robust backbone, branching out from the main distribution system out to each classroom and to each space in the building. There are data closets sort of tucked in all kind of places at the high school. The box you see on the right is in the science wing. It's tucked in a chemical
Planning
room, I
room.
think,
It's
for
in
the
the
most
planning
part.
room.
So, as part of the project, it's really going to be to provide more centralized locations for data equipment, locations that have better emergency power backup, are better conditioned from an HVAC standpoint so that the equipment stays cool, and are just better organized and are capable of supporting not just this year's equipment, but what's planned in 5 and 10 years, which keeps upping the ante, so to speak, for how much data is needed to support it. Okay. I know that Sue is looking at purchasing as much equipment as possible through the E-rate program, which is what, about a 20% discount?
80% discount.
80% discount. I've had it backwards. So we can kind of combine district purchasing of equipment with bid labor and infrastructure that would reach out to those pieces of equipment. Okay.
So simply put, the picture on the left is not a picture of a more robust infrastructure system. Is that safe to say?
It's functioning and it's
It looks pretty
it is
robust
organized.
to me.
believe me. I know there are some
Pretty robust.
Robusted.
I hope, yes.
Robusted.
I hope that room is locked and secure because.
Well, that one is, but the planning room isn't. That's what.
Well, you can get in there and do an awful lot of damage if you wanted to.
It would be a new fiber backbone between the main distribution panel in the building, branching out to all the different closets throughout the building. There may be some copper wiring improvements that go out to access points, actually quite a few copper improvements to access points, copper lines to voice over IP phones. So it's going to be kind of a mix between fiber optic cable and copper cable.
Josh, it would have been better having a picture up there from Patsinosa of how that went.
Oh, that's good.
We'll do that, Bob, after you approve us getting started.
Yeah.
Keep you in suspense.
Just want to be
Okay.
at the next meeting? Okay.
Yes. And I'm sorry I didn't include the slide, but again, the classroom technology improvements for Marsh and for Shawnee as well. Okay. All right, so the overall schedule for this, hopefully approval to proceed with these scopes in October. November, December, we want to make sure that we have both the scope and the budget put forth again before the board so that everybody's on the same page as far as what we're doing, how much it's going to cost as we develop the bid documents. Advertise for bid after we complete the documents in the January timeframe. February, receive the bids, prepare the contracts, and give the contractors notice to proceed, get them under contract in March, again, so that we can order material. We can have them on board so that come May, maybe late May, if we can get in certain areas without disrupting the educational process, we can get that started and wrap it up in August. Any questions?
I do have one question.
Yes.
So for the track surface, have we resurfaced that?
It was installed, I believe, the same time as the field, I want to say, in 07.
Did we resurface that at all?
It was all, I don't
For some reason, I think that the track may have been done a year prior to the turf. So remember, we protect the track. It was really close. It was like a year after.
Was it
But
resurfaced?
was it resurfaced, Tim?
Was the track resurfaced?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was milled. It was milled down to the blacktop.
And we've done it. That already has a resurfaced the track.
Wow,
Since it's been initially installed.
Oh yeah, this is gonna. I want to say that this may be the third track since it was put in from cinders, which it was originally when the building opened.
Has this
No.
track, this type of surface been
Resurface?
resurfaced?
Yeah.
Yeah, right? We did,
Yeah.
we did it before. So how long
Usually do
did,
it every 5 to 7
yeah, I was
years.
gonna say, so,
I want to, I'm almost saying that the track service was done a year prior to the turf.
The current service.
The current turf.
So that's 10 years, 11 years.
It hasn't been done since then, we're saying.
There were parts of it that were repaired when there
Yeah,
were some
well,
sinkhole
right.
issues, but not
right.
resurfaced at all.
One of the biggest issues that we have right now with the track is that the rubberized surface is no longer adhering to the macadam surface that is the sub-base in areas.
Makes sense, it's 11 years old.
And Mr. Reinhardt, can I revisit the use of the turf? Because I did start looking at numbers when it just became very difficult to quantify it, but essentially the way it comes down to is that field gets used constantly. So field hockey has its practices and games there, but if they're away, somebody will melt onto it, whether it's an intramural group, another sport, football will come up and use it when they have a chance to. So essentially, when you take the nice weather months when it's possible to be outside, I would say easily 3 practices, intramural, or competition is on there a day. So if you take those months, and then you also take the summer, which probably bumps it up because more workouts, more camps, more things, I would say easily 750 practice game or intramurals are on that field in a year. And that's just taking those nice months knowing it won't sit there without somebody on it. Whether it's lacrosse, even if they're off season, they will jump on an opening that's there. And
anybody that'll hop the fence.
and everybody, yeah. So that's why it became difficult because there's a lot of intramurals that use it. There's a lot of other things, but
Yeah.
we
Lights on the
practice.
field too?
We do 3 to 5, 5 to 7, 7 to 9 practice or competition opportunities, and so it's used whenever the weather's nice, and even when it's not nice, because you can use it in the pouring down rain. So teams that would normally cancel practice will just go to the turf if possible. So.
The only reason why I asked for a number is because I think that a lot of people have strong feelings about turf and natural surfaces. And if you're not around schools, you don't really know how often those artificial surfaces are used. And so that might help to, for somebody that doesn't understand that there's a greater use of those facilities than the natural.
And we even have, we've had other schools come and use our turf to practice on because they're going to a field they're not used to. So, I mean, it gets used. I would say 700 to 750 is probably a conservative.
And that's just during obviously the warm weather months.
And we've had coaches want to shovel it to practice on it, and we don't let them do that because that's problematic as well. But
I think that even if we had the most robust natural turf, natural grass there, we'd be playing on a dust ball with the amount of use that we use that for.
Well, see, I think all those are all these comments are important parts of the conversation because again, you know, turf is expensive. The artificial turf is expensive. The other thing that I think a lot of people aren't aware is how expensive it is to maintain a natural turf field, and all the education and the processes that you have to go through in order to maintain a nice, safe turf, natural turf field is expensive as well. So.
Plus the PE classes, people don't realize how much PE uses it. I think they may use that for 3 or 4 stations because they may have several sports going across the field and then have another sport actually running on the track for PE courses. They use that as like 3 to 4 stations when they're out there every period.
So your 750 doesn't include PE?
No, that's.
So there you go. Yeah, that's even more.
And what's nice about that too is the PE class, they're going to go out there first period, and you don't have hundreds of kids coming in with wet feet. Because if they were out there on regular grass, and we'd be tracking that all in. Even, you know, and a lot of times they're out there till later in the year because of the fact that it is turf. They're able to go out there, and we are sort of limited to how much gym space we have when the weather does get a little cooler to stay inside.
And if that wasn't a synthetic, we'd be looking at a lot less practice opportunities and be looking for places for those teams to practice, which I think in past years was an issue.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mike, did you want to touch on the Tracy?
Yes. You want to go over the numbers?
Sure.
If you recall last time, Josh was getting prices on the recommended change orders for Tracy project for the casework, the sink, and the cabinetry.
Yes.
And he just got the prices today. What I'd like to do, there's a scheduling issue and an order time for this material. So if we could get a consensus from the group here tonight just to possibly give the contractor authorization to place the order, then we can ratify it at the next board meeting. Believe it or not, again, with Tracy, and then go right into the Forge project, 2 weeks is an issue. So, go ahead.
It is. So just for everybody's, bring everybody up to speed, at Tracy, we were asked to look at some other scope items that weren't included in the original project scope. The one that we're going to talk about tonight, because it's more of a time-sensitive issue than others for approval, is the replacement of the classroom casework and sink that's located in the classrooms. As Mike had mentioned, from an ordering standpoint, it's really important because the general contractor is going to place the order for the casework that's already included in the bid. If we can include everything together, he pretty much still is guaranteed a spot with the factory as far as when they can start fabricating it. If we wait, his concern is if they would happen to get a big delivery or big order from somebody else, he's not sure what that's going to do to his point in the queue. So that's why we're just going to talk about it briefly tonight.
So the cost you're going to give us is the additional, not the whole.
Correct.
Because there's already some of this.
Yes,
already.
this is just the additional. Okay.
Yep.
So for all the locations, which is over 26 classrooms, the general contractor's amount for just the sink and the casework back there is $190,692. The plumbing portion of that for the actual sink, the piping, the valves, etc., is $59,813. Okay, so if you look at the classrooms in total, it's $250,505, which really is pretty much right on with the number that we had anticipated based on that kind of corner casework piece and the sink when we were doing the walkthroughs and met with the committee. So from a cost standpoint, I know it's obviously a big number, but we looked at the costs. We think that they are fair and appropriate for the scope that was asked for. Okay. So those will be taken to the full board for approval at the next meeting, but we did want any feedback or discussion at this point tonight.
Just a point of clarification, how are we paying for these change orders?
Within the money, I think, Josh, this is outside the scope of contingencies, but the contingency money?
Well, there's allowance money that's built into the contract. This would be a contingency fund separate from the allowance.
Okay.
Okay, so this would be part of the district's contingency for the project separate from the contracts.
Okay. So I guess, George, to answer your question, the borrowing that we did for the Tracy project, the estimate far exceeded what the bids came in at. So we do have the money available under the borrowing.
Thank you.
Anything else on Tracy?
Better be done with Tracy.
We talked about painting and stuff like that.
Yeah, so this is not the full scope of what had been agreed to add at this point. We're still getting pricing for the other scope items, Bob. We were really pushing them to get this one as soon as possible because it is more time sensitive than others. But we will hopefully at the next meeting be able to come back with the rest of the pricing that we need.
How did you, trying to justify this without rebidding and everything, in the previous bids that they gave for casework and everything, did you look at those bids And were the current GC, was he lowest in the current casework work as well?
Well, we didn't get a full schedule of values from every bidder, so it's tough to say how one bidder's number for a certain item compared to others. What we can tell you is just looking at the breakdown per classroom of the costs, they do seem reasonable for how much they have to do.
You said before this casework sinking in cabinetry. Sorry, you said before this is casework sinks in cabinetry.
I mentioned cabinetry, I don't know if that's accurate.
Or is this cost here just the casework and the sinks?
Well, the cabinetry, because, I mean, casework
I'm
and
not
cabinetry
sure.
to me is kind of the same. So if it's just a matter of semantics, it's basically the base cabinet,
And then
the wall cabinets above the sink.
Okay.
In
Yeah,
that.
I just wanted
And the sinks, because they
Yeah.
were really bad. I mean, they had to.
just clarification, make sure I'm understanding it, not separate.
Well, what are we missing? So we're talking about paint. What are we not including in all of
Well,
that?
if you remember, Billy, we had talked about getting a price for window treatments, for paint, for, I have a whole list of items.
But not the sills or any of that kind of stuff. The rest should be minimal.
It's minimal, yeah. I won't say minimal, but it
compared
shouldn't,
to
it's not, you won't be seeing a number like you are for this.
Okay.
Any other questions?
No.
Thanks, Josh.
Yep.
Oh, all right. So I don't know if we want to summarize, but there's going to be something to vote on for the next building meeting,
Yep.
which will be the.
Well, we're going to vote on the,
Moving forward.
moving forward with the, for Dewey to do the designs for the summer project and to approve this, the change of the
Okay. I know I hate to bring this up, this is going to be a whole other things, but when are we planning on showing the designs or moving forward with the Cottingham in the pool? That's a bad word. What's the plan for that to start to come through? I know we're in football season, so I know.
They were, I want to say the Tottenham was a 2019 project and the pool was a 2020. I think we had it staggered 1 year apart, if I remember. So we'll need to discuss Tottenham by the springtime for sure.
Yeah, I'd like to start getting that worked on. Seriously. I mean, I know. Okay.
Between Tim's Chillers and
I
Tottenham,
know.
I'm not sure which one's going to stand up for us sooner. So.
Sounds good to me. All right, anything else like you want to add? Are you good?
Yep.
Okay. So finance?
And Mike, you're up again. Looks like only one item.
Well, yeah, I wanted to alert the board along the lines of aging equipment and facilities. We have some serious issues and needs to address with our fleet, being the police vehicles and our maintenance vehicles. I'll just give you a quick rundown. We have 6 police vehicles ranging from 11 to 15 years old. All are in excess of 100,000 miles. They were all bought used when we got them. Mr. Romali had come to me with a request to start turning over the fleet and start some of the vehicles. I mean, they're in the shop a lot. We are now looking for new vehicles. We would look at the opportunity when municipalities are done with their police vehicles after 4 or 5 years. I'm not sure what the normal timeline is. But it just came about a few months ago. There was an opportunity, I forget the police department getting rid of vehicles, and there were some good vehicles that we could have turned over to for our use for about $6,000. And so they're looking at that type of process to begin to turn over this fleet. And I don't know if we can sell what we currently have for a few bucks, but so I just want to put that on the board's radar, that if you see something from me last minute, it's because something's going up for auction and we might need to make a bid. But it is a serious need for our maintenance, our mechanics. I mean, we have 5 mechanics managing the aging fleet of maintenance vehicles, police vehicles, and 105 buses. So it's time. We started addressing our buses. We got 4 or 5 more a year or so ago. So this needs to also be part of that.
How many maintenance vehicles do we have?
Well, in service, say about 15.
17.
And I will tell you that they are all. We go into maintenance. The newest one is I think it's your truck, Tim. The 2008 is our newest vehicle for maintenance. We have vehicles in service dating back to 1992. I think Tim's looking at taking 3 out of service this year. Because it just can't be used anymore. But for maintenance for this winter coming up, we have an immediate need for a stake body, replacing an old stake body with 140,000 miles on it. But with this one, we want to put a lift gate and a plow on it. Cost estimate for that is $47,000. We would certainly look to purchase it if we can within our surplus monies, as opposed to leasing it. But whatever is more economical that we could would like to do is purchase 2 vehicles for sure for maintenance this year. And if we have to, we can lease it. Obviously, we use it more than 5 years, but we can do a lease purchase at a 5-year term. The other one is replacing a 1995 utility truck with 112,000 miles on it. We want to replace that with a new utility pickup truck with a plow. And that estimate is about $45,000. Again, if we could purchase it outright, but if we need to, we could lease purchase it for a 5-year term. So I'd like to let you know that we're going to go out and get bids for those vehicles. Be on the lookout for the security vehicles when they come up. That we need to do that.
Mike, we didn't put any money in the budget this past year for these items, and were brought to our attention back then, correct?
That's correct. Well, I thought that it's been ongoing, but given our budget situation, we said, okay, let's wait. But it's just, things happen during the year. So, no, a year ago at this time, we were hoping to get through this year with the vehicles.
Might we consider a schedule here of a replacement schedule and then building it into the budget? So that we don't come to a point now where, you're into a budget year and all of a sudden you have vehicles that you need to replace. If we have a replacement schedule and we build it into a budget, X number per year, then we can probably live with something like that.
Yep. George, I think everybody has to be reminded of the finances over the last years. And there was, as much as it could have been needed, when we were cutting staff, there was nothing new going in the budget. And that's why we get at this point. But I agree with you 100%. Tim has a schedule. We have the list of vehicles. And moving forward, now that we are on a better financial ground, those planning things will take place. Those planning opportunities will be available for us.
Yeah, I think the other thing we have to do whenever you go into a budget is you got to take a look at everything in your budget, and do an analysis. I think it would be very time consuming to do zero-based budgeting, but I think you gotta come somewhere close to that, where you look at all your categories and all of your programs, and you determine what you need or what you may not need, you know, and then reallocate those funds, you know, to be able to help with some other things. So, you know, I believe me, I understand where you're coming from. You know, your budget situation has been well chronicled over the years. Okay. I think that now that you're saying, you know, that the budget's on, you know, your financial situation is better, I think now may be the time to really get into and look at things and look at programs and see, you know, what can be possibly, you know, reallocated. So.
Well, I think, going on top of that is, you know, that's where everybody puts in their wish list, whether it be from maintenance or police or whatever, that, and then you just have to start to prioritize, you know, the board has to basically see all the items as part of that prioritization to determine where we go.
Yeah, well, I hear you. We've had conversations about this. It has not been my practice to come in with all these things. Oh, we're a $12 million deficit, and can we cut back? And now we're down to this level. We kind of like do that internally on the needs based on the administration recommendation with the building principles, and come in with. And even with that, we're going to be over where we need to be. And I think when we pare it down to that level, then we can certainly bring it to the board and go from there.
As long as the items don't come back up then before the next budget cycle.
Correct. Unless something falls out.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that completes everything.
Okay. All right. Is there any other business?
We do have an executive session.
Yep. Yep. Is there anyone from the public to be heard on non-agenda items? Seeing none?
Just like to remind the board of Paxino's rededication program next Wednesday night at 6:30, and you were given a first look at a special commemorative. Don't show it to anybody before next week. It's a big secret. So you're the first ones to get this, thanks to Dewey Engineering.
No, I haven't.
They provided funding for this little commemorative, which is very, very kind, and appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Okay, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Certainly.
Okay.